Today we're going to learn how to make calabacitas, which is a great New Mexican dish, and it's great for cooking from the garden because a lot of times we have an overabundance of squash from our gardens. So this is a delicious recipe. You can use it either for a main dish or a side dish, whichever you'd like. Here we have the ingredients. The other thing that you will need is some olive oil and salt and pepper to taste. So the first thing that you want to do is get your onions and your garlic cooking. So you have a half an onion, and you can just chop it into small pieces. And then you can also just mince 1 clove of garlic, and that will get you started. So for the purposes of our demonstration, I've gone ahead and gotten started with this dish. This is our onions and our garlic, which is I did in 1 teaspoon of olive oil. A lot of times you think you need to use a lot of olive oil, but you really don't. So this has been cooking on medium high for about 5 minutes until your onions are tender. So once you have your garlic and your onion, while your garlic and onion are cooking, you can go ahead and get started on your squash. We have a yellow squash and a zucchini squash. There's also a type of squash called the calabacita or a Mexican squash, and they're very available in the summer, so you can look for those. So what you want to do is just cut your squash up into bite-sized pieces. I like to make mine smaller, so it's a little bit easier to eat, and also it aids in the cooking process. So you just go ahead and cut your squash into small bite-sized pieces. And then once your onions and your garlic are sauteed, you can just go ahead and add this to this mixture. And we'll get the zucchini in there in just a moment. And again, the same thing with the zucchini, just cut it in half and then lay it flat. This is a nice way to cut vegetables because it makes them much more stable. So you can cut them and not worry about cutting a finger. And then you just continue to cut. And this recipe is nice because you can start with just 1 squash if you're just cooking for 1 or 2 people. But if you have a crowd, you can just judge what it is that you need, how many of these you would need. Often I will do 2 of everything, and that gives me enough for my meal, but it also gives me enough for lunch the next day. So you want to take this to the stove then, and then just begin to saute it like this. And then at this point, what I do is you'll want to cover it with a lid and let it cook. But I also add a little bit of water to my pan, probably about 3 or 4 tablespoons. What this does is it steams the vegetables so that you don't have to use additional oil. You can just let it steam, the water steams it. And you want to cook it probably for about 5 minutes until the squash is to the point that you like doneness. Everybody has a different way they like their vegetables cooked. So when it's reached the doneness that you like or close to it, then that's the time then that you'll add the corn. The corn will not take as long to cook, so you want to add that a little bit at the end. Here I have some sweet corn, and this is a great way to cut sweet corn off of the ear. Sometimes when you try and do it just on your cutting board, it goes everywhere. So what I have is I've secured it with a paper towel in the bottom of a bowl. And then you just want to use a knife like this. It's fairly sharp and small. And you just go down all the way to the end like this. And then you can just lift your paper towel out of your bowl and throw it in to your calabacitas. So, and then you just will cook it for a few more minutes covered until it's done. And then when it's done, this is what the recipe will look like. This is it's a recipe that's done and it's hot And what's a really nice thing to do is just to add some cheddar cheese, sprinkle cheddar cheese over the top, let it melt a little bit, and the cheese is very good with the calabacitas. Hope you enjoy this recipe.